Welcome to Jung at Harp, episode number 182, Self-Healing Through Self-Expression. I am Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian psychoanalyst in North Carolina in the States, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, who is a composer, a mentor, a creative. We both have online communities where I coach people for embodiment, and she coaches people for creativity and self-expression and so much more for both of us. And we both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. And almost every week we come together to have a conversation around a question. We start not with answers that we've come up with, but with a question that we're both wrestling with and finding, searching for meaning in our own lives, and hopefully it will be meaningful for you. And if you're joining us live, hopefully you are on a platform where you can join in our dialogue through the chat. And if you put in some comments, we'll be able to see it and then share those live. So, how do we authentically come to our harp and our life and allow it to move us to self-expression is the question.
You know, it's interesting. If I can jump in first, because the minute you said come to our harp, I thought, what does harp represent for anybody? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think a harp represents for me is self-expression, not just through our voices, not just through our bodies, but through our hands, our engagement with something else, and our ability to be extended through something else. And so what's happened in our society is that we are looking at the people who are really good at anything, whatever it is, and they are in the light and we're down in the dark. So we kind of start thinking of anything that's performative. I mean, I guess especially with our hands. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of talking off the top of my head here because I'm responding to something that came as an unformed image to me when you were saying that. Mm-hmm. And so and then I was like, then I'm arguing with myself. Well, wait a minute. What about cooking? Well, yes, we go to restaurants for cooking. People get stars, something like that. Versus, what does it mean to see the authentic value in the thing that we are doing when it is not, I'm a Michelin 5-star chef, and it's not, I'm the person who's in front of 2,000 people and you're one of those people. But when people are taking anything, whether it's cooking or whether it's an instrument, and I particularly love thinking of it with my hands because they are a very important part of our speaking. And how do we authentically experience ourselves and then share ourselves with others without getting into that other realm of, am I good enough? And I'm thinking about this in part because you brought it up at the beginning, but then as soon as you did, I was like, yes, we just posted a blog post. We've been posting about all the different projects that the harpists in Hip Harp Academy have been doing. And one of the projects was she said simply, I was in chaos in my life, and I simply sat down and played in order to center myself. And that was the point of this. This was a healing experience for myself, not I'm going to show you what I can do experience. And instead of trying to achieve anything, she took, and I think you had an experience similar to this recently, where she took what she already can do and just enjoyed doing it. And she did it spontaneously. So she was connecting different things that she knew because she now knows how to do that. You can take this thing and then you can put it over here and connect it so you can keep going. I felt that was a healing experience for her. So I'd love to hear about, what you experienced. And what I know in both of your cases is that when you came to the harp, there have been times when there was a lot of anxiety about your worth and ability. and something has shifted, and you are now able to actually open up the channel to healing, which is a natural process like creativity or growing or learning. This has become a channel for that rather than a place in which you get shut down. I would love to hear about that journey for you.
Yeah. So, one of the things I keep thinking about, and this is related to my journey, but it came to me as you were talking about hands, is that if we look at ourselves physically, our hands connected to the wrist, the arm comes up, and it comes up into the chest where our heart is. The heart and our lungs. And so for me, I think when I can come to the heart or to our conversation or my life with my heart leading, and I always think about how the heart, if we look at the chakra system, is the one in the middle. The heart is where the upper that get associated with intellectual processes, brain working, and the lower that are the gut, the more instinctive, primitive. It all comes together at the heart. It's that's kind of the center point. So for me, it's not. It is about the heart, also symbolically as the center. So if I can come with my heart, meaning that I come from, okay, what's meeting here from both directions,
Mhm.
then it allows me to be true to myself. If I only come from here up with my head and my intellect and all that I've learned and what I'm saying to myself about what I should be doing and the vision I have of other people playing and how I should be playing or want to play like they do, then I lose connection to the lower half where I'm grounded in my own body and what I'm experiencing that day. So for me, the self-healing that can come through the heart, when I come with my heart and my hands coming from my heart, is that those two worlds come together and start to inform each other in a way that they find a harmony. They find an inner harmony where then I'm not at odds with myself. And I can't describe to you how that happens. I mean, I could go to the alchemical processes that I use talk about as in symbolic of embodiment processes to describe it. But ultimately, that is an organic, mysterious process. It happens.
Yeah. So can I step back and ask you about something in this? And I'm having a deja
Yeah.
vu here, but yeah, you talked about seeing other people and the compare and disintegration sometimes when we compare. Well, I admit I've been watching cat videos this week. It's been one of those weeks. And one of the things that came to my mind when you were saying that was odd videos where people were doing things and their cat or their baby or something like that was copying it. Now, I understand, copying things is a human instinct, but it is always surprising to me when it's an animal instinct because,
Mm-hmm.
but, but and then as you said, and so it's an instinct to copy what someone does. I mean, I love it when I'm out for a run and I see somebody running very connected with their body and they run past me, and I love to just watch them and let my body try to get my
Mm-hmm.
body get that same rhythm and just enjoy it, and like, where is that energy coming from? It's a really beautiful thing. I like grab onto their running print or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel where their energy is coming from. But then I was thinking this idea, so it's natural to want to do what somebody else does. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Sees a kid on I want to try that. Let me try that. I want to try that. But when it becomes a thing that then stops us, it feels like that's like, what's the name for that thing? Like, I put some bread out this morning and it had a green spot in it. What's that called? That's rot. What is it when something that is a natural process, like copying or like responding, becomes something that stops us and pulls us down from authentic
Yeah.
expression? I just want to know what is that called?
Uh, oh, that's a good question. But it's the opposite of individuation. I mean, it's
Right,
the opposite of being oneself. I
right.
mean, I suppose in Jung's structure of the psyche, it means someone goes into a persona. they go into a role that's like a mask they put on because it's originating from the outside instead of coming up from the inside.
Okay. And I'm also thinking the word I'm not versus I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're because I'm thinking, whoa, I'm thinking that in my self-expression, it's not always about me being me, like, hey, hello, I'm me, whatever me is. Sometimes it's about me being, it's a very, very small animal that does something like I don't know what it does, or being like something big and like so sorry, I'm gonna get like, whoa, self-expression is being yourself but not being yourself, but it's getting to be anything. It's getting to be anything without feeling that whatever it is not the thing.
Well,
yeah, and that reminds me of what you actually said about what you experienced. You said,
yeah,
I wasn't practicing,
right.
but I sat down and I played and I was like, you took on a practice.
Yeah.
Oh, the beat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me this week, I've been very intentional about coming to the harp at the end of my workday, as being an agent of self-healing for me, so that through my harp I can be nurtured and can release all of the pain and energies I've collected through the day sitting with the people that I work with, because that's part of what naturally happens in any relationship, and it's part of what happens for me. So I decided that right now, with all that's going on in my life, that the idea of practicing at the heart, meaning I have to somehow work on this technique or I have to learn this song or whatever, it was becoming a block. It was becoming a block to my playing. And so I was avoiding my heart because I didn't have the energy to practice, i.e., work at it. So I shifted and thought, okay, suppose I just let the harp is a healing instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And healing for me means becoming whole. Okay, so that's what I mean by self-healing, to become whole, which means to become conscious and allow all of what's stirring in me to integrate, to let it to find for it to find its rightful place. So I don't split things off and deny and dismiss things. Okay, so when I did that, it allowed me to come to the harp in a whole new way. And I found myself now wanting to come to the harp. It totally shifted that because my agenda, if we want to call it agenda, or my goal, or for me, it's really my sacred intention took precedent over the intellectual goal. Or, my sacred intention, because it became something that was heartfelt, that yeah, I'm still mindful when I'm playing that I want my technique to be the good technique because I don't want to injure myself long term. So I'm mindful. Being from my heart doesn't mean I'm not mindful of these things that I might would practice, but being mindful of it and in the felt experience of it is different than coming to it with a goal or an agenda of this is what I've got to accomplish.
Well, so much stuff is going in my head, including technique and trying to kind of remember when I was learning technique and thinking, I think there were really only two techniques I learned, or two concepts that I learned. That but that's something else. But what I wrote down as you were speaking that I really was interested in was self-healing versus, but it's not versus. Self-healing, where does self-healing and self-expression, what is their relationship? I mean, that could be a whole book. Where's the relationship? Because I know that in the journey to so mine is social media.
Okay.
Discomfort in being able to show up to that toy or instrument or place of engagement authentically and comfortably and have fun, which is something I've been able to do all my life with instruments and stuff like that. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, interesting, because when I come with and you were also talking about being whole. I know one of the things that I've heard about addiction, which is always interesting to look at because it highlights so much of what we're dealing with every day, is that it's like there's a hole in your soul.
Mm-hmm.
As you start to recover, that hole is no longer this gaping hole, but it's like you become to inhabit your whole self.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as if there's a part of you that has a like, keep out, private property, nobody can get in, including yourself or others. It's funny, I saw that big hole like that just now. And that I'm just so interested in self-expression and self-healing. And I remember, as we're speaking here, I remember somebody coming up to me after a show I did a couple of years ago. And in the middle of the show, I don't know what made me do this, but I was singing something. I don't know what it was. I remember I went to the end of this stage and I was just playing and I don't know what I was doing. And he was like, whoa, it was like you were praying or something right then. And I don't know, I wasn't beseeching or anything like that. I wasn't being like, let me show you how to play this piece or anything like that. I was simply in that moment that I might be in by myself. But honestly, being with an audience gave me more permission to go to that place of full self-expression than if I were by myself. So somehow I've discovered for myself that that an audience is a place where I can be more safe, more self-expressed, more. In part, I think because when you're on a stage, it's like there's nothing too big to be on a stage. A stage is the place where it's okay to be too big. He's constantly feeling like, I shouldn't be that big or that loud or that self-expressed. The stage becomes a very safe place.
Interesting. Yeah.
But right now in my life, what I'm focusing more on is in my legacy project and my academy. And so I'm not in that environment of self-expression. And I feel that social media is not a place where you can be super big because hello, it's just this little thing in there, there's no, well, maybe there is response. Anyway, I don't know. What am I talking about here?
I'm just circumambulating the feedback you got from this person a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't have a cognitive, it's not like you can recall what you did. And to me, what that says is that's because you were doing something for the first time, even though I'm sure there were many variables that you've done the same thing before. But in that moment, it all came together in a way that was just about that moment in time, where you were, how you were feeling in that moment, the environment you were in, the energy in the room vis-a-vis the audience. And so it was a unique self-expression, even though you may have played that same piece hundreds of times before.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should say that, because as you said that, I thought, yeah, well, it was probably in the middle of take 5, because the improv in take 5 does not impose anything aside from this one rhythm. I mean, it doesn't move around. It doesn't have to move around. And so it actually creates this permission for anything. And so you're right. And I actually do use that piece as a way to get to that place where I am discovering in the moment and I do not know what I'm doing. And you're right. I mean, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking, well, of course that's magical. I mean, what else would you want to see what would you want to see a performer do? Like if I saw a performer or any person do that, when I do see people start being in their world, I just want to stop and like listen and like keep going, get bigger. Where are you taking,
Yeah.
Now, I'm not aware. I don't know if that was healing for me or not healing for me. And I don't know what it was, for the audience, or because I'm back at this question of self-healing and self-expression, because I'm thinking if I can do that on a stage, is there what is it that is with this different medium, this one that we're, that I'm not allowing myself to play in the same way, because you sat down and you played, truly played.
Yeah, my own relationship to social media is, I have an Instagram account for Inner Divine Spirit, and so what I finally came to that I could do, and sometimes I'm consistent and sometimes I'm not, is make like 30 to 60-second reels that say, one way to connect with the inner divine spirit today is to, and then to state something, a principle, or, something that I know will support you and me in connecting with our essence. Because to me, the inner divine spirit is our essence. And once I decided that was the way that I could put something on social media that I felt had integrity for me, that was authentic to what I was going to, it freed me up to be able to do it. I've had a sharing coach who says, "Oh, you're supposed to post stories about whatever's going on for you during the day," and I've tried some of that, but that's kind of not my. It just doesn't feel natural to me, and I'm probably a little more private or shy than that, and so it's kind of like deciding, okay, how can I come to this medium knowing who I am and how I move in the world and what my own temperament is, and how can I find a way to work within that medium to get the benefit of it and to benefit other people in it, but also not push myself to be something I'm not, which is different than pushing myself to expand into something I am. And then we have to go to the question of, well, how do you know it's something you're not versus something you are, which, you kind of picked up. That's another, we won't go there today. That's too much. That's,
One of the things that you're making me think is that when people come to the academy or talk about improv, they often are very nervous because they don't know what to do to improvise. And one of the things that seems to really have made a huge difference and opened up is the idea of snippets. That people and snippets. Someone asked in the academy probably 3 or 4 years ago. She said, "Can you just give me something to play with that I can improvise on? Like, do you have anything like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, like 5 gazillion things." And she said, "Well, can you just give us one?" And so I did, and then the next day she was like, "Can you give us another? And then can you give us another? And can you give us another?" Until it became this real part of the academy. And so I'd like to find this in other parts of my life, but I just want to just show one for a minute here, although this is this is one where it literally the fundamental of it goes from G. The harp is tuned in C. I go from G down to F. And when I'm saying I go, the lowest note, so I'm creating a structure by going from G down to F. That's the foundational concept here. So I'm playing with a foundational concept, and then I'm adding more foundational concepts. Foundational concept is what's called an open fifth. You can see how far my hands are apart. Now I just add that above, and I can do it with both hands. And now I'm engaging also the sound quality. And then I can start another foundational concept, place something like that down here to structure it, and then improvise. I mean, melodic, move in single notes, up and down, in sequence leaps and adjacent notes. Like there's nothing happening there, but it is a bed for creativity. Meaning now I can start. I'm not just practicing. There's nothing happening here really. There's nothing to remember, but I can experience musicality.
But there's so much happening.
Well, yes, and I would say this is a snippet that takes this long to learn. I just showed it to you, and yet it is infinitely expandable and creatable and playable around with, like. That like someone who never has touched a harp before, literally, I could show them that. They could do that. Maybe they just play the first note. I could show them the concept and they could be self-expressed. I haven't tried that. It makes me want to try it outside. But so a person who's never touched a harp could do that. And a person who's played harp all their life at this point, me, can take that same idea and be fascinated by it. It is some kind of thing that is created for self-expression. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is I'm thinking that when I go to social media, and I know that your sharing person was probably trying to give that to you, and yet I suspect it didn't have enough structure to actually be a creative prompt for you.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm thinking I can go on and make a little story to say, be sure to catch Jung at Harp episode number 182. I can do that. It is the structure. The other thing I'm thinking about is you're talking about the snippets, and I'm thinking about my own experience of coming to the harp for healing and self-expression of healing is the idea of playing. Because I find myself sometimes, if I learn a snippet, then my intellect becomes dominant. And then something kicks in. But if I discover a snippet, and I think so often about how you learn piano playing, when you talk about growing up and the instruments being there and you could just sit down and play. And I was probably taking lessons for years before I actually ever let myself just sit down at the harp and play and see, what did my hands want to do? What sounded good to my ear? What resonated with my heart? And, I bet most all of the harpists in Hip Harp Academy have enough skill set. They can do a chord, they can do inversions, whatever, or they can do a scale to be able to just sit down and put their hands on. And does going from G to G resonate today, or does going from F to F or B to B? And
so as a Jungian psychologist, what do you think is in the way of them doing that?
I think we live in a culture, and the collective consciousness and unconscious is so much about work. I think we're still suffering from that puritanical Calvinistic overlay that has been around for centuries, that things have to be hard, we have to be serious, we have to be getting somewhere. And then we have this overlay of we've got to be efficient, we've got to be productive, we've got to be making something happen, we've got to scale things, And so I think that there's a lot of collective ethos that takes us out of self-expression, which is today, wow, I just want to play with F. I want to play with the F chord. Wow. Oh God. Oh, that E flat, man, that's resonating. Or no, I don't want that today. I want to go to Dorian, and being able to discover that, because as I put my hands and it comes back to me, there's a resonance or there isn't a resonance.
Okay. So, this is really interesting, because what you're saying is kind of like, you're not saying, why do you have to give them snippets? They could use anything. We are, and we're not saying right. That's true. And it's true. And yet, so for example, it is true. They could play with anything. So when someone asked me, do you have a snippet? And I'm like, yeah, anything. Take a piece of music, look at the first three things that it does and play with that. And that makes sense. And many of them can do that. And you also gave me the idea, like, oh, I'm going to start asking people to find snippets in the world and bring them in. But then it'll no longer be me who has the snippet secret. But the snippet secret, but, and the but here is Same with social media. I could do anything. I could play with
Right.
anything.
Right.
But what I'm getting for myself right now is, without a structure that I can focus on to keep me focused, all that other stuff, the like, are you making a fool of yourself? Are you doing this for too long? Are you going to, is your credibility, are you losing your credibility? Blah, 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 blah. If I don't have something that I can really be interested in and trust, all that other stuff will come in.
Right.
And so I'm thinking that if I wanted to create a similar
Right.
construct as a musical creative snippet, if I wanted to create it for myself, it would have, there's a limitation in this. And it's oddly the limitation that invites the creativity. It's kind of like saying, you could play with anything in your house, but let's see everything you can do to make a pencil come alive.
Yeah, the snippets are a focus. And again, it's not that there's nothing right nor wrong, good nor bad. The snippet is the focus. And in fact, I think I discovered how much I love the key of F when I was doing one of your challenges and playing with whatever the progression was or the snippet was for that, you know. So I think that it's not that sometimes we don't need to be given structure, like the structure I have for my reels on Instagram or the structure of the snippets. It is how we then engage with that. And then allowing ourselves to say, oh, and you always say this, I hear you over and over in your in the academy, you'll say, and if you don't like this one, just move a finger down one. You're always encouraging people to take your snippet and change it, to find what works. You know, if this isn't just right for you, then use this one, you know, make this adjustment.
I'm smiling because I remember, I feel like crying actually, because I remember that's a fundamental principle of music. You don't like what you hear, move it one step away. And this was because then it comes into balance, or it comes into harmony. You start hearing whatever harmony you want to hear, which is interesting thing to think about in life. And I remember being taught that by my mother. I remember exactly where I was, you know, in the car with her, because that's where we sang a lot, harmonizing. And I wanted to learn to harmonize. And so I asked, how do you harmonize? And she said, well, here's how you do it. You take a note, you start with a note, and you listen to it as the other person's singing. And if you don't like the way they sound together, you move it just one step. And then if you don't like that, you move it one step, and you can move up, you can move down as much as you want, but just keep a small step. But then so she gave me the principle. And the next thing she did, and my mother was not a patient, maybe, I don't know, maybe she was, her tolerance to hear me do that with her without any perfectionism, it was amazing, because she was not that way in other ways, but for some reason in this particular way, and the things, when she would teach me something, she would let me play with it. And the tolerance to her listening to me learn how to do that was what allowed me to then play with it. And I'm just very moved by your bringing it in, because I'm thinking, wow, one person in one moment in your life says one thing, and that thing can become something that opens up so many doorways, especially when it's a fundamental concept like that. But then there has to be the safety within which to explore that fundamental concept.
Right.
And I think that takes us back to the heal. I don't know why it seems to. Is that what you're thinking? Or
well, it circles back. Well, I'm thinking what a beautiful gift your mother gave you, and that you can recognize that, and you know, to feel safe enough to explore the harmonies and get it quote wrong without anybody saying it's wrong. It's just different.
Right.
And again, the freedom in that, and the safety. Because I do think part of, for me, and I know for myself at times when I sit down at the Harp, having the structure. So like if I say I'm going to have a practice session, and I know that I'm going to start my practice with doing chord inversions, it gives me a structure to relax into and move into that space. And so I feel safe, and that it keeps my inner judge saying, "Oh, this isn't, you're not doing anything that matters," out of the way, because I'm doing something that matters,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
So that the safety, and like you said, I mean, you alluded to that, and I know we're kind of intertwining all the pieces we brought in here.
Mm.
Um, but to have the structure which gives a focus that then checks the judgment and the criticism and the self negation is often critical and essential, and then moving into being able to find the harmony that works for you.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
whether it's, yeah,
So now what I hear you talking about is being in the realm of discovery,
yeah,
discovery and exploration. And as you were talking, I was thinking of this, the hole in my soul, this thing that has been described as the experience of addiction, having a hole in
mm-hmm,
the soul. And as you were talking, I was thinking, I was just imagining that you're discovering what's in that darkness. You're actually connecting it. So I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not an addiction specialist, but I'm the image that I got of discovery and exploration versus trying to play something correctly
right,
is, I see how it is healing
yes,
in that way, because somehow it knits together through discovery, not through intentionality to do something. Right. And it's funny now I'm imagining myself, because I know when you and I fell down a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting to watch myself heal, and to like watch kind of how my body did it, and I know that it kind of knits something together, and I'm wondering, how are those cells curious, or are those cells like, I'm gonna say, I know what to do here? I mean, I don't know. Okay, now I'm off on a tangent. Please take me back.
Well, but I think what you're saying is beautiful, and a way for us to start to wrap up in the next 3 or 4 minutes is that the self expression and the healing all require, and I do believe this is true, a safe place for discovery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, we're operating in a box that only allows certain things in and certain things out. It keeps others out. And so to really heal from a Jungian point of view is to become whole. It means like all of the energies in our psyche and our body mind find their rightful place. They all are integrated and they work together as a unified self versus being in opposition to one another all of the time. And of course, the reality of our life is that we're always kind of swinging, like the pendulum, and that unified self where we're in harmony is kind of like the middle point of the pendulum, and then we go to the other side. It's a constant process. I don't want anybody to think it's a static state. So, but to find that, one has to be willing to be outside the box. So at the same time, sometimes we need to start in the box with the structure or the focus. We also then have to be able to lift the lid off the box and let that structure then expand into new structures. And having the snippet, I'm going to come back to the snippets for a minute. Part of what the snippets have done for people in the academy is it allows people to have I'm going to talk about it this way, a phrase here, a phrase there, and a phrase there, and then to start to play and self-express and decide, oh, I like this phrase with this phrase, and I like for this phrase to come here. Oh, I don't like that phrase there. I'm not going to go there next.
Right.
And so it becomes a parameter. So now we're moving from a structure of a too small box to the structure of a parameter, a fenced in area, a playground where one is safe to explore. And at times we want a smaller playground, and at other times we want a larger playground. Just like sometimes, when we're feeling vulnerable, we want to come in our bedroom and shut the door and go under the covers. And other times we want to go for a walk in nature.
I see sometimes we want a clubhouse, And it's fun to be in the clubhouse, and sometimes it's fun to be, in the garden, and sometimes
Perfect.
it's fun. Yeah. Wow, this is so much for me to think about. I'm thinking one other thing I just want to share is in the Academy, there's a lot of sharing. People are sharing projects and what they're working on, and not what they've completed, but their ideas. And one person came in with, she wanted to play with birdsong. And I could tell all of us in the moment when we saw how she was doing it, each of us had oh, I want to do that. And I want to try it this way. I want to try it this way. And I want to try this. So this one concept that became a snippet, a concept. I wrote something down, a concept for exploration.
Yeah.
A musical concept for exploration. Okay. Now I'm interested. Now I'm interested in what I can find to help me explore the areas in which I feel anxiety, dating, social media, probably anything that reminds me of high school or junior high. And I just want to pull up as we're coming to the end here. And thank you for everyone who said hello. It's really nice to see you here on this Labor Day weekend. And Victoria's saying self-expression and healing all require a safe place for discovery. I like that. And structure helps reduce overthinking, or that thinking that takes us out of our discovery and exploration mode. And you're right. And I think that's pretty much, I don't know about you, Kathleen, in your community, but I think this is really the heart of what I'm hoping to create, is a safe place for discovery and the structure that allows people to actually have something to play with.
Yes.
That gives them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I want to go find, thing more like that to take me into those realms. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. What a perfect, just what a gift.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for everybody who comments, just to say hello, and both before and after. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.
See you next week.
Visit jungatharp.com for show notes, contact links, and to follow the ongoing conversation. That's Jung, as in Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, and harp, as in the many-stringed instrument.